And now, the further tales, a chilling selection of spine-tingling stories guaranteed to keep you up at night. Our next tale is called Hollowail Orphanage. The sprawling Gothic structure of Hollowail Orphanage had loomed over the outskirts of town for more than a century, its windows like vacant eyes, staring out at a world that had largely forgotten it. Closed for over 50 years due to outdated practices and persistent rumors of neglect and abuse, it was a place children in the nearby town of Oakhaven whispered about in hushed, fearful tones. When a local historical society, led by the ambitious and somewhat foolhardy historian Arthur Jennings, decided to purchase it for restoration into a museum, many thought them mad. Arthur, along with a small team of volunteers including Sarah, a skeptical archivist, and Ben, an enthusiastic but easily spooked intern, began the monumental task of clearing out decades of debris and decay. The orphanage was a maze of long, dark corridors, dormitories filled with rusted iron bed frames, a cavernous, echoing dining hall, and a particularly grim infirmary. But it was the old nursery wing, supposedly for the youngest children, that exuded the most palpable sense of unease. The walls of the nursery were adorned with faded, peeling wallpaper depicting unsettlingly cheerful farm animals. A few broken wooden toys lay scattered on the floor, and a single dust-covered rocking horse stood frozen mid-rock in the center of the main playroom. It was here that the strange occurrences began. Subtle at first, then escalating with chilling intensity. They would hear faint, childlike giggles echoing from empty rooms in the nursery wing. Doors they had firmly closed would be found ajar, sometimes wide open. Cold spots drifted through the air like unseen entities, often accompanied by the faint, sickly sweet smell of decay or old, unwashed linen. Ben, the intern, was the first to experience something more direct. While sorting through old records in what was once the nursery matron's office, he heard a child's voice distinctly whisper his name, "Ben, come play." He spun around, but the room was empty. The heavy ledger he'd been holding slipped from his grasp, crashing to the floor. He fled the wing, white-faced and trembling, refusing to return alone. Sarah, the archivist, tried to maintain her skepticism, attributing the sounds to drafts, old pipes, or Ben's overactive imagination. Arthur, driven by his passion for the project, initially brushed off the concerns. "Old buildings make strange noises," he'd say. "Let's focus on the work." But then Sarah herself began to experience things she couldn't rationalize. While cataloging items in the main playroom, she saw the rocking horse move. Just a slight sway back and forth, as if a small, invisible child had just dismounted. She blinked, thinking her eyes were playing tricks. But then it happened again, a slow, deliberate rock. The air around it turned frigid. The most pervasive and disturbing phenomenon was the nursery rhyme. Late in the afternoons, as twilight began to creep through the grimy windows, a faint off-key melody would drift from the nursery. It was always the same tune, a creepy, sing-song version of "Ring Around the Rosie," hummed or sung by what sounded like multiple children's voices. Sometimes it would be accompanied by the sound of soft, rhythmic thumping, like small feet dancing in a circle. "Ring around the Rosie, a pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down." The final line would often be followed by a series of soft thuds or a sudden chilling silence that was somehow more terrifying than the singing itself. Arthur, despite his attempts at bravado, was clearly unnerved. He'd found old records detailing outbreaks of influenza and tuberculosis that had swept through Hollowail in its early years, claiming the lives of many of its young charges. The "ashes, ashes, we all fall down" took on a horrifying new significance. One evening, Arthur, Sarah, and Ben were working late, trying to meet a deadline for a grant application. They were in the main office, far from the nursery wing, when the singing started. This time, it was louder, more insistent, and seemed to be coming from just down the hallway. "They're closer," Ben whispered, his eyes wide with terror. Arthur, determined to confront whatever was happening, grabbed a heavy iron poker from the fireplace. "Stay here," he told Sarah and Ben, though his voice trembled slightly. He cautiously made his way down the corridor towards the source of the singing. As he approached the nursery wing, the singing grew louder, the childish voices taking on an eerie, almost taunting quality. The air grew heavy and cold. He pushed open the door to the main playroom. The room was bathed in pale moonlight. The rocking horse was swaying violently. Small, shadowy forms, child-sized, seemed to dart and dance in the periphery of his vision, giggling. The singing was all around him, a disorienting chorus. Ashes, ashes. Suddenly, dozens of small, grimy handprints began to appear on the walls, on the windows, blooming into existence as if pressed there by invisible children. They were everywhere, surrounding him. "We all fall down." With the final line, the rocking horse crashed to the floor. The shadowy figures vanished, the singing stopped. A wave of icy air washed over Arthur, and he felt a small, cold hand tug at his trouser leg. He cried out and stumbled backward, poker falling from his grasp with a clang. He fled, joining a terrified Sarah and Ben. They locked themselves in the office, barricading the door with a heavy desk, and waited for dawn, listening to the intermittent chilling sounds from the nursery wing, soft whimpers, playful giggles, and the occasional distant refrain of that dreadful rhyme. The next day, they brought in a renowned paranormal investigator, Dr. Eleanor Vance, no relation to the Lighthouse novelist, though the coincidence was noted. Dr. Vance was a parapsychologist with a calm, scientific approach. She spent hours in the nursery wing with her equipment, EMF readers crackling, EVP recorders capturing faint whispers and childlike sighs. During one EVP session in the playroom, Dr. Vance asked, "What do you want?" After a long silence, the recorder picked up a chillingly clear child's voice saying, "Play, forever." Dr. Vance's conclusion was sobering. "Hollowail isn't just haunted," she explained. "It's imprinted with the residual energy of immense childhood suffering and loneliness. The spirits here, particularly those in the nursery, are those of children who likely died in tragic circumstances, perhaps feeling abandoned and forgotten. They're not necessarily malevolent, but they are trapped, replaying their limited experiences, seeking attention, seeking playmates." Dr. Vance suggested that the restoration project, the disturbance of their dormant space, had stirred them. The nursery rhyme, she theorized, was a powerful trigger, a memory deeply embedded in their tragic past, perhaps one of the last games they played. Arthur was faced with a difficult decision. The Historical Society couldn't, in good conscience, turn such a profoundly haunted place into a public museum, especially with the palpable distress of child spirits. The project was quietly shelved. They did, however, take Dr. Vance's advice on one matter. Before boarding up Hollowail Orphanage for good, Arthur, Sarah, and even a reluctant Ben returned to the nursery wing one last time. They brought with them a box of new, brightly colored toys, balls, dolls, building blocks. They arranged them carefully in the playroom. Arthur then spoke aloud, his voice gentle. "These are for you," he said. "We hope you like them. We're sorry for what happened to you. We hope you find peace." As they backed out of the room, Sarah thought she heard a faint, almost happy sigh, and for a moment, the oppressive coldness seemed to lift slightly. Hollowail Orphanage still stands, a dark silhouette against the sky, its secrets once again sealed within its decaying walls. No one goes there anymore, but sometimes locals walking past on a quiet night claim to hear it, The faint, distant sound of children giggling and the soft, eerie strains of a nursery rhyme carried on the wind, a chilling reminder of the lost children of Hollowail, forever playing their ghostly games in the dark.